your dreams.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and today I'm just going to be talking about Furina comps, Furina teams that you can try out once Furina has come out. That's basically about it. That's the video. If you happen to like this video, just leave a like and subscribe. So if you're still in the deep waters of what Furina's kit does, let me, fish you out of those deep waters. Furina is a sub DPS character that can buff your party's damage from her burst at the cost of your party's HP. This means whenever you're running Furina on any comp, you are going to have a party-wide heal, otherwise your party is going to die from having their HP drained from Furina. First team comp I'm going to talk about is a Vape comp with Hu Tao, Furina, a random healer, and Yelan. Yelan can obviously be replaced with Xingqiu, whoever you have or whoever you want to work with. Hydro Resonance provide the HP for Yelan or Xingqiu, and also Furina, also Hu Tao. If you're using Beidou as your healer, he will make an excellent healer. He does scale off of HP, so the Hydro Resonance will also benefit him. If you're using Yaoyao, it'll also be pretty good since Yaoyao also scales off of HP. So every character is going to be scaling off of HP in this comp. Any healer can work as long as they have a party-wide heal. Yelan and Furina, or Xingqiu instead of Yelan if you're using Xingqiu instead, they're both going to be applying Hydro off field in order for Hu Tao to do some Vape with those Hydro applications. If you're using Beidou as your healer in this comp, Beidou is not really going to be doing much other than healing. He doesn't have to do much in the beginning of the rotation. If you have him with Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayer, you can just have Beidou out first, swap to Yelan or Xingqiu, and then swap to Furina, and then swap to Hu Tao, and this deals some Vape damage. And once the rotation is finished, you switch back to Beidou and then just start healing. If you're using Yaoyao instead, maybe your Yaoyao has the, 4-piece millilith, you can use Yaoyao's E and then start swapping to your characters and doing your rotation. If Barbara is your only healer because you're just unlucky, you can still use Barbara. I would not use her elemental skill though. Heals that you'll be getting for Barbara, you're most likely going to be getting them from her burst. Furina herself can heal when you switch her to the Pneuma state. However, this can be kind of considered a DPS loss because in her Pneuma state, her elemental skill is not applying Hydro whatsoever. If anything, Furina's Pneuma state is more like a panic button. If you are starting to die because of the HP drain and you need heals as quickly as possible, you would switch to Furina's Pneuma state. Yelan provides damage bonus over time whenever her elemental burst is up in the field. If you are using Yelan with Hu Tao, you are not going to be using charged attacks because Yelan's burst only works for normal attacks. The buff that you receive from Yelan is so good, you don't even need the charge attacks anyways. The normal attacks with Hu Tao will work just fine with Yelan's burst. But if you are not using Yelan, you're using Xingqiu instead, then charge attack all you want, especially if you have Hu Tao at C1, because at C1 I do believe the stamina for charge attacks are not drained when whenever she uses her elemental skill. So if you do have Hu Tao at C1, it is recommended that you at least use Xingqiu so you can at least take advantage of Hu Tao's charge attacks. But if you have Hu Tao at C0, it'd be better to use Yelan instead because you're going to be using her normal attacks with Yelan's burst. Anyways, the next team I'm going to be talking about is a freeze team consisting of Ayaka, Furina, Shenhe, and the last slot being Jean. Shenhe is one of the best cryo supports in the game because that's basically all she does. She buffs cryo damage through her skill and through her burst. If you are using a cryo DPS character, Shenhe, and I say this loosely, is a must-have. Furina obviously providing Hydro application and a damage buff through her burst. Jean obviously being the party-wide healer. You can also use Barbara instead to provide Hydro Resonance bonus for more HP, or maybe even Kokomi as well. Ayaka being the cryo main DPS, you can obviously use Ganyu instead, or maybe even the new Ricely. So the rotation can look like this: Barbara E or Jean E or Kokomi E, whoever the fuck your healer is. Swap to Furina, use her burst, use her elemental skill. Swap to Shenhe, use Shenhe's burst, use her elemental skill with the hold button. Swap to either Ayaka, Ganyu, or Ricely, and then just beat the shit out of the enemy, right? Freeze comps have been cucked recently because Abyss has boss enemies now and bosses cannot be frozen. So keep that in mind whenever you're using freeze comps. Next team I'm going to talk about is a mono hydro Kokomi team with Furina, Yelan, and the last slot can either be Xingqiu or Kazuha. Mono Hydro Kokomi is something I've never even heard of until now. Kokomi's main source of damage is coming from her burst, and whenever she uses her burst, her normal and charge attacks are basically supercharged and deal a lot more damage, and with the clam set, Kokomi even deals more damage. Yelan's burst will deal damage to the enemy whenever an ally is using their normal attacks, and since Kokomi's main source of damage is coming from her normal attacks in her burst form, she will be able to take advantage of Yelan's arrows during Yelan's burst. Furina is providing damage to the team from her burst, and you don't have to worry about Furina's HP draining mechanic fucking you over, since Kokomi's burst and her normal attacks will heal your party, thus giving you, a lot of fanfare sticks in order for you to, gain more damage bonus, since you're constantly getting HP drained and healing at the same time. Now, the last slot could either be Kazuha or Xingqiu, depending on what you need at the moment. If you need some AoE grouping, then Kazuha would be the better option, but if you're using the mono hydro Kokomi team on single target, then you could probably just run Xingqiu instead. This team I'm going to talk about is going to be a pretty interesting team. I do want to try out this team, but I don't have Zhongli, and this team will consist of Zhongli, Furina, Yunjin, and Noelle as the main DPS. Noelle can only be a main DPS if she's C6, because at C6 she's basically like a paladin. Noelle's main source of damage is going to be coming from her burst, and whenever she uses her burst, she's basically using her normal attacks, and whenever she swings that giant ass sword around, she does heal herself and the party. Yunjin does provide normal attack damage bonus from her burst, so she can synergize pretty well with Noelle. But if you don't want to use Yunjin, you do have other options like either Beidou or Goro. I know Goro provides defense, which is pretty good since Noelle does scale off of defense. Beidou can provide Geo off field and can be a pretty good energy generator for Noelle. Zhongli, obviously being Zhongli, providing the shield and shit. And Furina, obviously providing the damage bonus. This team is kind of similar to the Kokomi Mono Hydro team, but obviously it's Geo with Noelle. Noelle does provide healing from her burst, and Noelle's main source of damage is coming from her burst, so you don't have to worry about Furina's HP draining mechanic fucking you over. Next team I'm going to talk about is a Hyperbloom team consisting of Cyno, Beidou, Nahida, and Furina. Beidou and Nahida providing the Dendro Resonance, more elemental mastery for Cyno, which means more damage. Beidou is an excellent healer, so he is going to heal you from Furina's HP drains and also from the enemies. Furina providing Hydro in order for you to create bloom cores, and then you can explode those bloom cores to cause Hyperbloom with Cyno. And since Furina's burst does just overall buff your damage, she is going to work pretty well in Dendro teams. Another Dendro team you can use is a Burgeon team. Just replace Cyno with Toma or maybe even Dea, and there you go. I'm not that too familiar with Burgeon teams. I think I've played one once. I think they're basically, just Hyperbloom, but a bigger explosion instead of like a missile that you get. But as I said earlier, Furina's damage buff is going to work well on any Dendro team, really. Just make sure you have a healer that has a party-wide heal. Last team I'm going to talk about is a Hypercarry team, more specifically a Hypercarry Scaramouche team consisting of Wanderer, Furina, Xingqiu, and the last slot being Jean. For Scaramouche swirls Hydro, he does get more sky points, thus he will be in his elemental skill state a little bit longer. Xingqiu works pretty well with Scaramouche because Xingqiu's elemental skill does provide damage to interruption resistance, which is very good for Scaramouche because if that boy gets hit, he's basically flying around like a missile. Furina provides the damage buff, and Jean is there for the party-wide heals. Anyways, that's going to be all of the teams that I have come up with Furina for now. Obviously, there are more teams and more combinations that you can try. Let me know what you guys think. What team are you going to be using on Furina? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.